This episode of the only podcast about movies was recorded a little differently. Since Shahir's on the run from the law, he couldn't be in the studio during the time of the recording. So please excuse any audio anomalies you may hear while we try to match up our words. Also, this was recorded before the Oscars, so if you're looking for some Matt rage about Spotlight, wait till next week. With that said, enjoy the show. Is up, Internet? My name is Matthew Kroll, famed in multiplexes across this great nation of the United States of America, playing the most recent superhero movies.
And my name is Shahir Dowd, and I'm famed in small art house theaters that nobody attends.
And this is the only podcast about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. Now, wasn't it called Green Destiny at some point, or am I making that shit up?
I think you might be making that up, but that's what the sword is called.
The sword's called Green Destiny, because I was looking up sort of like reviews and other things, and a lot of people were like, when I saw the thing, it was like, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Green Destiny trailer today. And I was like, huh?
Yeah. No, perhaps it got changed somewhere in the marketing, but definitely the sword is called Green Destiny, but the film, as far as I can tell, is called Sword of Destiny.
It is. That's what Netflix told me. This is a Netflix original film, Shahir, based off a very popular film from 16 years ago.
Yeah, 16 years, and based off a popular series of books as well. And this is the second Netflix movie that you and I have done. And so I guess we should probably talk about that whole phenomenon. Now, I'm not around right now, as you
No,
might
you
have
are in parts unknown. I'm staring at your microphone longingly. I'm actually stroking it right now. You are not in the same room as me. We're using magical internet technology.
I can feel your strokes, by the way.
Yeah,
it's
that's
magical.
very strange. That's a different kind of... Maybe we're actually martial arts masters if you can feel me doing that right now.
Now, did the film play... This was a simultaneous release, right? Like, did the film play in theaters?
I mean, that's the rumor, but I didn't see it anywhere.
And here's the I guess the broader question is knowing that it was on Netflix and knowing that it was in theaters, which would you choose?
Netflix.
100%.
Okay, let's talk about that real quick. And this is a sad, sad story, but here we go. Last night, I went to go see, I did a double feature yesterday. I did this film and I did The Witch.
Oh, I'm so bummed. I really, really want to see The Witch. I want us to talk about The Witch.
I know. One day we will. But I want to talk more about the experience in the theater of seeing The Witch in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
The Witch is a very quiet film, but I don't know if it was because it was so quiet and sort of like not monotonous, but just like very purposeful in its silences. But I noticed so much more bullshit at the theater than I usually do. Shahir, I counted 9 cell phones drop.
Oh God!
Like, you know when someone drops their phone, and I was like, every time I'm like, I pray your fucking screen cracked. Like,
yeah.
There was that. There were 4 times where people with not people that work there, but just regular people with legitimate flashlights were walking up trying to find seats.
Oh God!
And then I won't even count how many people were like actually on their phones or using them as lights.
Now of the things that you just mentioned, I think the most egregious is when people use their phones. I think just using your phones. Like here's a public service announcement from me. If you use your phone for anything other than a flashlight in a movie theater, you're a complete dipshit.
Yeah, but every time they dropped, I was so happy. But I thought that'd be the end of it, but nope, 5 minutes later. And it really took me out of sort of the world that movie was trying to build.
You're in 1630s New Hampshire, and then you're in, 2016 New York.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, that movie was in my backyard, and I still felt disconnected from it. Yeah, my point is, with more and more experiences happening like that with films, and I'm not saying this is a film that I couldn't enjoy in the theater because the Crouching Tiger sequel that we're going to be talking about today and The Witch are 2 very different films. But I just think the more this is happening, the more I'm like, why do I like going here? Like, you have to find a good theater with a good general crowd to keep it going.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to... Yeah, I completely agree. Like, it's hard to justify going to see a movie at the movies these days, given the cost of it and the douchiness of the audience around you and the general,
Seriously.
the general uncomfortableness of, like, leaving your apartment these days is, like, such a barrier to entry for me to, like, go to the movies. I reserve going to the movies for big films that feel like they should be seen on a big screen. Now, Matt, you and I both own projectors at home, so we both have the ability to watch big screens. But there are still, even with that capacity, there are certain movies like, for example, The Revenant, which I felt is an experience you should have in a theater as opposed to having at home.
I mean, yes, it all depends on, I guess, which theater and how. It's all like it's checks and balances and like levels and shit. It's like, how much do you value like a really beautiful screen against people fucking talking and doing bullshit throughout the movie? Like,
yeah,
so
completely.
It's balances, and I don't want to be that dude that doesn't like going to the movies. We do a movie podcast, the only one, I might say, and it just sucks that the experience is being degraded. And I do feel like I'm the old guy now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, kids in their fucking, but these aren't kids. Oh, and you'll love this, Shahir. There was a stroller that wheeled into the witch.
Oh, God. Into the witch.
I will say, baby, super well behaved. So maybe that there's a scene where some stuff happens with the baby, so maybe that shut him up.
But this was this was a nighttime screening, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That baby should be at home in bed. I'm sorry. Yep. It should be. Yep. There's no way it should be at the movies. Maybe
they were the witch. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. So back to the Netflix discussion of it. I think it's good. And I think particularly for this type of film, it's very good. I don't know how I would have felt going to pay like $20 and seeing it in a movie theater. I think my review, as we'll sort of get into it, will be it takes its delivery method in account.
Yeah. Although I did feel it kind of it felt, now because the film was filmed in New Zealand, it felt a little bit Lord of the Rings, Hobbit-y to me, and I wondered if that was kind of meant that it kind of felt like it should be in a movie theater.
It did and it didn't. Something, and we'll get into this a little bit more later on, but something that really hit me in the face when I first started watching it, I was like, wow, this movie looks gorgeous. Like the first 20 minutes or so are fucking beautiful, and I know there's some green screen and I know there's some other stuff, but I didn't care because it looked so fucking cool and different and colorful, and I didn't feel like it felt like Lord of the Rings. I just felt like it was something that I hadn't seen before or in a while. Like, I was like, man, like this, I'm like, if this is what I'm in for, I'm really going to enjoy myself. And then as the movie progresses, it's almost like they used all their wonderment up top. It did not have that feeling of beauty throughout the entirety of it. So, like, it primed me for something that it didn't necessarily deliver on. But that's getting further down the thing. Yeah. But Shahir, do you want to talk about the special thing you've aligned from the mystical ether when you're not in this room?
Yeah, you've ruined my surprise, Matthew. I wanted to surprise you with a special guest that we had consult with us on this episode. Now, just a little background about me. I once I graduated from film school in New Zealand, I ended up teaching at that film school, and I TA'd for a number of years, is what you would
Spoiler alert, you've mentioned you taught at a film school almost every podcast. Just going to say that right now.
Well, because this was going to lead into my other thing, which is about pretentiousness and pretentiousness in film students. Because one thing that a pretentious film student will always do is mention that they've been to film school.
Yes.
So I ended up TAing there, and one of the professors I ended up TAing for was a guy by the name of Dr. Han Joon Magnan-Park, who I was very fortunate to actually TA for, and who, through some circuitous turns of fate, ended up taking over a course with another colleague of mine, Andrew Patel. We ended up taking over his Film 101 course, or maybe he ended up taking it over from us. I can't remember how it quite worked.
History. I'm
going to read you Aaron's, or Dr. Park's bio. He currently is the assistant professor at the Hong Kong University. And he is the assistant professor in the Department of Comparative Literature. He received his PhD in film studies at the University of Iowa. And the reason we've got him on this episode is he specializes in Pan-Asian cinema with a focus in Hong Kong action and contemporary South Korean cinema.
Overall badass is what you're saying.
Oh, he is fantastic. And one of the things, like my personal affection for Aaron has to do with the fact that he introduced me to a number of amazing Korean films. He introduced me to one of my favorite filmmakers, Lee Chang-dong, whom he wrote an amazing essay about his film Peppermint Candy. But
nice.
Aaron is also one of those. I was going to talk about pretentiousness in cinema, and Aaron in academic cinema studies, and Aaron is one of the few people that does not have any pretensions whatsoever. He is the kind of guy that gets as excited for an obscure film by M. Kwon-taek in Korea as he does for James Cameron's Terminator 2. He's a lover of cinema, but also an incredible intellectual in cinema studies who, for anyone who has him as a student now, is very fortunate to do. And we are very lucky to have him consult or ask some questions. Now, we had hoped that we could get him on live, but unfortunately, because of my absence from the studio, it would have been a little bit more complicated to get us all in.
Shame.
Yeah, but
ding,
hopefully,
ding, ding.
Hopefully
Shame.
we can get more Aaron in at some point.
Yes.
But the reason we got him in was that this particular genre of Chinese and Hong Kong cinema, wushu pian, is something that he happens to be an expert in. And so I wanted to throw him a couple of questions that could help prime our discussion. And the first question I asked him, just a real basic primer question, which is, could you give us a definition of wuxia films? And this is what he said.
The wuxia pian literally translates to the martial knight film genre. It's usually translated into English as the fantastical sword fighting film. It originally featured a nusha, which is a female knight, as a genre's protagonist. It was later changed by director Zhang Zhe into a male knight, but historically it is the nusha, the female knight, and this is a tradition that is respected by Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and its sequel, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. The protagonist is usually someone with heightened martial skills defined by a particular school of martial arts, a particular weapon, or a particular secret move. They attain this level of mastery by the development of one's qi, qi, spelled in Mandarin or romanized in English as ki, ki, through the Japanese tradition. It loosely translates as energy. You gain qi by focusing your self-development through the martial arts, practicing, studying under a great grandmaster, or being inspired by nature or by defeat. Once you have attained a heightened form of qi, you can perform gravity-defying leaps, shoot energy bolts out of your palms, and perform jaw-dropping fight moves with or without weapons. The wuxia pian also is a vehicle for moral edification, since it promotes traditional Chinese values of loyalty, honor, and duty, and even self-sacrifice.
Well, damn it! I need to get me some chi, like yesterday, because that describes almost everything I've ever wanted.
You need to focus your attention. I've been telling you this for as long as I've known you, Matt. You need to focus your energy, and soon you'll be able to shoot fireballs.
Wait, hold on. There's something shiny in the corner. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just...
Damn it! Damn it, Matt!
No, that's an awesome, Aaron. Thank you so much for your answer. That is, I mean, I don't know. Let's back up just a second. I got into these movies, apparently like you got in to this sort of stuff, Shahir, through a wonderful teacher in Aaron.
I served under a grandmaster.
Right. Where I served under a completely different grandmaster, a drunken master, if you will. There is a man who is by the name of Matthew Marchetti, who I met in college. He was a friend of mine. And he was huge into Korean cinema. He's always been my go-to for either foreign or like almost schlock films. I know there's sort of two different sort of genres.
You don't want to lump those two together.
But like he would always, it'd basically be like the movies you'd never find out about unless you had a guy, right?
Yeah.
So he got me so into Korean cinema and just Asian cinema in general. I ended up going out and buying back in the day a Region Unlocked DVD player so I could watch all these films he turned me on to. And the first one that I watched, which was not a wuxia film, but it was called The Resurrection of the Little Match Girl.
Oh, that's a Korean film, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I know it. Yeah, well, vaguely know it.
So I used to watch it all the damn time, but I will say this, it didn't have a subtitle track.
Oh,
so
boy.
to this day, I've only managed to sort of watch, but like anyway, it's the interesting story of it is he was sort of my gateway drug in a much I guess less academic way than Aaron was for you.
Yeah. And Aaron has, I mean, it's still not a genre that I'm particularly like. I know basically the whole, like the main bodies of work within this films like Once Upon a Time in China, Crouching Tiger obviously is a major turning point, but Hero, since Crouching Tiger, Hero and House of Flying Daggers, both by Zhang Yimou. So it's a genre I am familiar. To me, the almost the analogous Western genre would be the Western, which is about tradition, honor. It's about the gunfighter coming into town,
right? And it's almost like chi and in these abilities is replaced with grit and gumption.
Exactly. So they're definitely not like one-to-one analogous genres, but they feel similar in some sense to me. Aaron might correct me on that. But so moving on from that, were you a fan of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I think I liked it for two reasons. One, because obviously the action was super cool and it wasn't something that I was used to back in that time. And then two, it was kind of like a really good emotional film ride. But like back then, let's see, what was that, 16 years ago? Is that right?
Yeah, it's a long time ago. We're showing our age.
I know. So I was in some sort of education system when that came out, and it wasn't sort of popular with the people that I was hanging out with to sort of like be a fan of like sort of, I guess, more emotional films. And I remember it having a very sort of like strong emotional pull to me, just the story or the sort of like pseudo love triangle thing, and like, but it was like it did both of its jobs very well. It made me invested in the characters and what was happening, and it was super badass fights. So it was nice to have a super badass fight movie that I could also like really give a shit about the characters and be emotionally invested and not be called a pussy when I was so little.
Unlike say modern Marvel movies or something like that, right? Am I right?
You don't think there's? Well, I'm sorry. I think about half of them do have very strong emotional pulls. They just go over your head, my friend.
They just go over my head. I'm not really at that level.
No, so you have to train now.
I do. I have to focus my chi.
Yep. You have to watch Iron Man for 3 days straight while standing on one foot and balancing a jar.
And then perhaps, maybe, no, I don't think even then I would get emotionally invested in that movie. Moving on. Film school pretentiousness showing up right there. No, I love Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I think I saw it in the United States. It was 2000, and I think I was actually dating a Vietnamese girl at the time who grew up with a lot of wuxia films. And so she was kind of explaining to me how she thought it was kind of a rip-off film, or it didn't quite work in the same way. But I still never quite bought into that, because even going back to watch more wuxia films since then, I still find Crouching Tiger to be the most emotionally engaging. And maybe that's because Ang Lee comes from this Hollywood tradition of investing human drama into action. Maybe it's something particular to him. But yeah, I found the emotional love stories that are happening in that film, and there are two that are happening in that film simultaneously, almost exactly the same that happens in Crouching Tiger, Sword of Destiny, worked balanced perfectly well against each other and against the action, which was incredibly exciting. And it's still a film that I go back and watch from time to time now. And I actually watched, I didn't have time to watch the whole thing, but I watched a few scenes from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon after I watched Sword of Destiny. Right. And boy, it holds up 100%. And there is a visual sophistication to those fight scenes that I think anyone making an action movie today should pay attention to, because it's 100%. It's just masterful.
Yeah. So I guess just jumping back in now to this film, the Sword of Destiny, the sequel, not to be confused with Tenacious D's Pick of Destiny. I keep thinking of that every time I say it. Yeah. But I guess we'll get into sort of story/spoiler town. So if you haven't watched it yet, You could pause this.
Well, should we give a quick synopsis? I'm looking at the IMDb synopsis right now. And
I mean, the synopsis is: have you seen Crouching Tiger? It's very similar.
It's very similar, and here's the IMDb synopsis, which is terrible.
IMDb? There's a database, Shahir.
Yeah, okay. God damn you, Matt Kroll. Concentrate. A story of lost love, young love, a legendary sword, and one last opportunity at redemption, which I think is also a false premise for the synopsis as well, because it doesn't feel like this is one last opportunity. It feels like they could make more of these.
Yeah, it feels like another opportunity for redemption.
Yeah, another opportunity for redemption.
That doesn't sound as epic, I guess.
So before we get into spoiler territories, Matt, what was your initial response to the film?
Oh, I guess I did jump the gun. I skipped a bunch of shit. My apologies. This is you'll hear this throughout my sort of review of it. I think I'm going to give this movie more passes than it actually deserves.
Sure.
Because I was watching it with my girlfriend last night, and afterward, I just
get it, Matt. You have a girlfriend. I get it.
Yeah. And after I'd finished, I noticed that Robin did not enjoy it. But something that hit for me, I was like, wow, I really miss these movies. Like, I haven't seen martial arts movie that I've enjoyed in a long time, I guess. That this is a part of my life, especially when Marchetti was showing me them back in college. I used to eat them up all the time, and then even beyond that, when I first moved to the city, they used to have a channel called Kung Fu HD.
Right.
On cable, and it was wonderful to see these like 70s and 80s movies like HD prints off the 35 millimeter, like just looking gorgeous and different looking, and I used to really get invested in them. And I haven't really sat down and watched one in 10 years. Yeah. So like, I feel like this filled a very large hole that I had no idea existed in my sort of cinema diet.
Sure.
And I think it's the perfect film for me at the perfect time. And so I'm going to try to remain as unbiased as possible, at least call that out when I know that I'm sort of gushing over it a little more than I think it deserves, because I think there's a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably not give it as many passes as you, just because I'm such a fan of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But it is, like you said in your opening, it is gorgeous to look at. It is a great reintroduction to the genre that I haven't seen in a while. And there are parts of this movie that I think actually outdo the love story in the first film and we'll get into that in spoilers. But on the whole, Yi Wu Ping, who is the director of this film, who's more famously known as a choreographer, although he is a well-established director in China and Hong Kong.
But here he's stunts, right?
Yeah, I mean, he directs here. Yeah, he's famously for doing the stunts on Kill Bill, The Matrix, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So, and he's famous for the wire work aesthetic. So the being able to do gravity-defying jumps and kicks. I feel like as much of the master as he is in choreography, and he is a great director on his own right, to me, unlike Ang Lee, he is kind of a B director. Like, he is good at delivering scenes, but not with the kind of weight and intensity and emotional investment that a director like Ang Lee is able to do.
Yeah, emotional intensity. I think the intensity was there in the fight scenes themselves.
Yeah, but
style, but there was no like real.
Yeah, there was no real heart to it, and it, like, to me, the thing that I missed was like feeling a genuine connectedness to the film. Now, another thing that Now, this is going to expose some hypocrisy in me, because I don't think I mentioned this.
Say it ain't so, Shahir. Say it ain't so.
I mean, look, I don't think it will, because I'm always right, but
there we go. That's better. I was worried about you for a second. I was worried that you'd lost your edge being in the studio.
I've softened in my old age. But I'm just thinking back to our Beast of No Nation discussion, and did we talk about the fact that Beast of No Nation is in English?
It might have come up, but I don't think it was a huge talking point.
No, and I think I might have given it a pass because it's set in a fictitious African nation. But it does. Now, this is when we come back to the Netflix discussion of the fact that Netflix is supporting these more difficult to distribute films in America. The one thing to take notice of, this is the second major film from Netflix, and it's the second time that they've taken a foreign country's language and made it English. And I felt it so hard in this film. And it's one of the things that, like, it's kind of like chalk on, like nails on a chalkboard for me, is hearing a foreign actors do English in a film that's set in China. I can't stand it. And if I didn't point it out in Beasts of No Nation, I think I probably gave it a pass. My hypocrisy is that there are certain films that I feel manage to transcend that inherent barrier that I have to watching those films. And films like, I watched Dr. Zhivago recently, Zhivago for the first time. And, that's a film set in the Russian Revolution, and it's told entirely in English. And although I think it would be a better film if it was in Russian, it didn't bother me that much. Schindler's List doesn't bother me that much. But a film like Valkyrie, for some reason, which is set in Germany and has Tom Cruise playing a Nazi commander, it just didn't work for me. Again, it was like nails on chalkboard. So the fact is, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny is in English, and I think that almost knocks it like 20 demerit points for me if there was a scale. It just, especially given how popular, successful Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was as a foreign language movie for American audiences. There's something about the dialogue when spoken in English that makes it sound incredibly silly.
Yes, no, 100%. And actually, I was debating whether or not to watch it in Chinese, or is it?
It's not available. I mean, I didn't think it was available.
No, it is. You can watch it. You can watch it with a track. It's on there. You can watch it in either language, but it's dubbed. So it's English, and then it's dubbed in. Is it Mandarin or is it
Cantonese? I think it's Mandarin.
Okay.
Aaron's going to scold me so hard if I got that wrong, and I think I did.
Yep. Oh, Aaron, deduct points. Go back to his old tests.
Yeah.
But you could do it. Then I was debating doing that and then watching it with English subtitles. And people I've read on Reddit, and a couple people have sort of said, like, it's even some of the stuff, like it made it feel like it had more weight the way the words came across with English subtitles. Felt like everything was more important. And I don't know if I equate that to, I'm just going from an English speaker reading subtitles for a film. I think when you do that, you can actually, in your brain, give it more weight too.
Right.
Like, if you're paying attention and you care enough, like, you can make any sentence sound better in your head.
Right.
But there's something weird. There's just something odd. I was kind of hoping it would be not in English and then dubbed.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah, it just, and I'm just reading now, I think it actually was in Cantonese, not in Mandarin, so again, I got that wrong. But I just find, like, to me, the wuxia...
Oh, it actually says here, it says it's Mandarin. Is that what you said, or no?
I said Mandarin, but I just read something that said it was Cantonese. I don't know.
It could be, I mean, we're getting, we don't know.
We're getting into territory that we're not too familiar with.
Yes.
I find that there's a poetry to the language that is best expressed in its original form.
Oh, of course.
That is just entirely lost in English.
But it's weird because the original form was a script they didn't shoot. You know what I mean?
In the Sword of Destiny or Crouching Tiger?
Yes, in Sword of Destiny.
How do you mean? They
so
shot it in English.
They wrote it in its original language, but then they translated it to English, shot it in English, and then used the original script.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's fucking weird.
It's weird, and it doesn't work, and I think it's like, if anyone's coming to this genre new, this is not the way to do it.
No, I think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the first one, is a great starting point to get you interested in this style of film.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one, are we in spoilers now? We're 100% in spoilers?
No, not quite in spoilers, but close.
We've done this for a half hour now, Shahir. We got to talk about spoilers.
Use your focus, Matthew. Focus.
That's my focus noise.
Well, I mean, because I just wanted to point out, like, how successful Crouching Tiger was. It was a behemoth of a film. It won 4 Academy Awards, made a shit ton of money. So for Netflix to kind of hedge their bets against the language factor, I think is disappointing. frankly, it just doesn't work, and it's disappointing that they chose to do it that way. Given that they have a Chinese director, an almost entirely Chinese cast. I know a lot of the actors came from Australia and New Zealand, but I just feel like they should have gone that extra mile.
Yeah. Apparently, it rolled out in China, and it over the weekend, I guess, or something. 32 mil at this point, or as of 2 days ago.
Okay, that's not bad.
So that was in theaters, I believe, not in. I think the international rollout might be just all Netflix.
Okay. Before you go on, I also did ask Aaron to kind of give us a fill-in on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon's success. Would you like to hear what Aaron had to say about how Crouching Tiger kind of changed the game and paved the way for a film like Sword of Destiny?
Yes, please. Play it!
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon created what British scholar Leon Hunt terms a new category of film called the martial art house film. Basically, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon catapulted the wuxia pian into global popularity. It attained unexpected global box office success, grossing $128 million in the United States to achieve the honor of highest grossing foreign film up to that time, as well as grossing $213.5 million globally. It also had a successful run of film festival and industry accolades. At the Oscars, it won the Best Foreign Film, Art Direction, Original Score, and Cinematography. In Hong Kong, it won Best for Film, Director, Supporting Actress, Cinematography, and Action Choreography. However, the film itself was not able to create a sustained and ongoing global run of wuxia pian after its success. Many films were released. However, they did not receive the same level of global theatrical distribution and marketing as did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
All right, so yeah, obviously Crouching Tiger was a phenomenal hit. And I think one thing that Aaron's pointing to as well is that there was at least an attempt to carry on that tradition with, like the bigger films that came out after that were Hero and House of Flying Daggers. Did you see either of those two?
I did, but I gotta be honest. I remember Crouching Tiger. I don't particularly remember the other two.
Well, that's I could. The reason I could say that you don't remember them is they're not as good, in my opinion. I know Aaron's particularly a fan of Hero, and I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth. But I'm not the biggest fan of Heroes. I think it's kind of structure over good storytelling. But it's it is a gorgeous film. It's probably one of the most beautiful films ever shot to date, shot by Christopher Doyle. And it is if you don't remember the film, one of the things is it's basically a flashback story where each flashback has a completely different palette. So everyone wears red costumes and the scenery is red.
Yes.
And then it goes to blue and then green. It's beautiful, beautiful.
I'd forgotten about that. I love that shit.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And if anything that Aaron said could be pointed to why Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny exists, is possibly to try and recapitalize on the success of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's my feeling about why it exists. Before we get into spoilers, I'm not the biggest fan of this film off the bat, and I can see why they made it, as in it's an attempt to try and recapitalize on that success. But I other than that, I don't really see why they made it.
Yeah, it's an odd time, but I don't know, man. Like I feel like this podcast is about everything but the movie. But no, it's an important thing to say is like we're in a time where 15, 16 years down the road, all of a sudden we want to do a sequel for shit. Fuck. Zoolander 2 came out last weekend.
Yeah, and why did that sequel exist?
And I love Zoolander, and I mean any of these sequels, Dumb and Dumber 2 or whatever, Anchorman 2, like these comedies that I'm so shocked there has not been a Wedding Crashers 2. Like
I'm sure someone's got it in the works,
and that might happen. Yeah. And I just don't think I think because Hangover 2 proved it could sort of be done. People think it can be done, and Hangover 2, while a box office success, was not it was just the same movie again. I mean, you kind of say the same here.
Yeah. Crouching Tiger, Sword of Destiny is almost the same movie. It's just kind of it's the sequelization theory, which is that people enjoyed the first, let's give it to them again, except with bigger stunts and bigger bigger stars or do something different. I always remember a quote from Jerry Seinfeld about sequels where he said, think of it this way. If in 20, 30 years from now, we might have gone back and thought about The Hangover as one of the greatest comedies made in the 2000s. But
Right.
because it had 2 terrible sequels, that's what we'll remember about it.
Yeah.
Like whereas if the sequels can really degrade what was great about the original as well.
You know what's so funny? Another big Netflix release. This is the only podcast about everything but Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. Another big Netflix release, same day, Fuller House.
Yeah.
Now,
and why does that exist?
I've watched a couple episodes, and at first I don't know how if you've heard about this, but like the original like parents and Uncle Jesse and Joey and all that stuff. They're only in a few episodes.
Right.
They're not in it throughout. It's mainly about Stephanie, DJ, and Kimmy and their kids.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
But the first episode is painful.
I think I walked in on my wife watching it, and I was like, and I kind of cringed my way out of the room.
Yeah, it's painful. It's all references and whatever. But you know what it does, and I'm not through it yet. I think I'm 3 or 4 episodes in. I actually, from as far as a sitcom standard sort of goes, I actually am not minding it when it's just the girls and their kids.
Right.
And like if Joey comes over to babysit one night, like that's kind of how it's played out.
Right.
It's sort of better in that regard when they don't just keep fucking doing, like, again, it's the same thing. The premise is exactly the same.
Yeah.
DJ's husband dies, left alone with kids, friends move in to help.
And
Ta-da.
It's the same with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. The premise is the same, which is that Yushu Lin, who's played by Michelle Yeoh in the first film,
God bless her,
and she looks amazing at 53, is coming back to protect the Green Destiny, which was the sword that was being fought over in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Now, the film doesn't have Chow Yun-fat, Li Mubai.
Which, huge problem for me. But
yeah, huge hole in the film.
Yeah.
Because they try to replace it with Donnie Yen as Silent Wolf. And Donnie Yen is, again, a fantastic martial artist. And it's probably offensive to say it like this, but he kind of has always struck me as a B actor compared to someone like Chow Yun-fat or Tony Leung, who's, was in Ashes of Time, or the Grandmaster as well. Those are kind of A level actors, and Donnie Yen's always strike me as a B level actor. And that kind of this whole film kind of I feel the kind of B movie feel to it. You know if that makes any sense. But at the same time, it's so funny when these things come out. There's a level of B movie now that's not like from a technical and from a visual standpoint. Oh yeah, it doesn't. It's
totally A grade.
Oh yeah, it's
like,
completely accomplished.
But it's so this weird. I might call these B+ films or A- films. I don't know what the fucking genre is.
Well, here's the thing. I think maybe that's a good pointer to the fact that there's an increased democratization of technology. People are able to make like the gold standard of movies, with less equipment these days.
Sure.
But it also points to what the distinction between a filmmaker like Ang Lee, who is able to be technically that adept, but also emotionally that adept.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing in this film.
I do have to say, so Michelle Yeoh is phenomenal in this movie, as she's phenomenal sort of in everything, and I'm always thoroughly impressed, and I guess because she's so, constantly in shape her entire life, sort of, like the moves that she does now, 16 years later, look just as fucking good. Like, that to me is a level of like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Physical, not endurance, but just drive that I've never even remotely had a sliver of. So, I mean, kudos to anyone in this industry or B, it just in martial arts in general, who just like keeps fucking trucking.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much is her versus how much is a body double, and I know that was the a single issue in the first film as well, particularly with Chow Yun-fat. Mm-hmm. But it points to another pleasure of the genre, which is that despite the wire work being amazing in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, one of the things that is incredible is watching great physical performers just do their thing.
Oh yeah.
And I felt that was missing in Sword of Destiny as well. Like there were really good performers, but it's a thing where I think Yi Wu-ping is an amazing choreographer, but not necessarily an amazing cinematographer or an amazing filmmaker.
I can see that.
You know, like there was a way that Ang Lee was able to like be cutty and B, capture the action simultaneously. So he didn't just do like long takes of people fighting, but he also kind of like choreographed it, shot it in such a way to best show people, delivering stunts, that were kind of jaw dropping. Mm-hmm. And that's just missing in this film, despite having, like a bigger arsenal of visual tricks up its sleeve.
Yeah. I mean, again, I totally agree. But again, it's like that weird thing, like everything you say makes sense to me in 100%. And it's weird because of the time I watched it, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, I'm like, I don't care. Like something I really liked, and it's spoiler time, Shahir. I don't give a fuck. Now we're going to start talking about Spoiler Town 9000.
Do it.
It's later on in the film when when we sort of meet. Basically, people have to come and protect the sword because Michelle Yeoh is not the only one, and she knows she can't hold it against these people. Like first, they sent a kid in to try to like steal it because he's like connected to the sword or whatever, and then they decide they need more protection, so they put up bounties all around town.
Yeah.
Side note: I love how that's how it used to work. You could just like stick a piece of paper up and be like, "Come protect this sword." If you have honor.
Yeah, I love that genre. Now, I've seen that sort of subgenre of like, like we talk, the Fellowship of the Ring, but also like in Japanese films as well, like the Seven Samurai.
Sure.
Or 13 Warriors.
Yeah, so it was basically like the Avengers assembling it at this sort of noodle house bar place in the woods. Once they, like, Silent Wolf found the main guy there, found the banner and put it up at this noodle bar thing shop. I guess it was kind of like a trading post or something.
Yeah.
And then all these fucking, I called it the Chinese Fellowship of the Ring. Like all these like cool warriors with very specific powers that felt almost Mortal Kombat-y to me, which is, I'm sure they do because Mortal Kombat borrows heavily from these films. Sure. But like there was the guy with the armored arms, and there was the girl with the poison darts, and the guy with the knives, and then my personal favorite.
Master. Yeah.
Yep. The Drunken Master, dude. Oh, God bless him. That's Jackie Chan's Drunken Master, both versions I love. But whenever I see that character in a movie or that type of fighter, I don't know. It really makes it makes the whole thing come together for me.
Yeah, it tickles the cockles of your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. I love that assemblage, but I there's an interesting thing that happens, and obviously spoilers, that a few of them die. And it's supposed to carry
spoilers.
Weight.
All of them die.
Well, yes, eventually all of them die, but at the beginning, just one or two of them die, and it's supposed to be kind of like, it's meant to feel like an emotional moment. And I don't know, did that connect with you? Did it land with you?
No. Well, this is the weird fucking thing, man. Like then they have the scenes where they're all like joking around and having fun together, and it's super fucking cheesy, and I love it.
Yeah.
And then that's supposed to give you the weight for when they die that you care. I have this weird. I don't know if it's the genre or whatever, but like obviously they did not 100%. You look at it, anyone watching it who's not already engrossed and gonna be like, I don't give a fuck. This has no emotional weight whatsoever.
Yeah.
But me, like when the first couple of them died, I was like, no! Like I yelled
really?
No. Like but
that's great.
But like in a weird sort of play along, this is where it's different. It's not me legitimately caring. It's me a la going to see The Room in like a theater. Yeah. And like being like, shut the door, or like whatever. Like it's me interacting with the film, not because the film elicited a purely emotionally natural interaction, but for me, the enjoyment of a film like this, and it's the sequel, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The original didn't do this because I feel like it delivered on an emotional level. When a film like in this style is lacking in emotion, I sort of go into my little kid brain and sort of, I don't know, make it more fun for myself in a weird way.
Sure, I can see that.
And
I'm glad that actually landed for you, because I think if it does land for you, then the film is much more enjoyable.
Yes, and Robin looked at me like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, no, but he was important. But I know, like, from a crafting of the film standpoint, they did not deliver that for the majority of audiences that weren't in my mindset.
Right, and you know, the film has an ending montage which shows those characters again, you know, those character introductions again, as though they were kind
like
of
beloved, like
yeah, beloved characters, and I was just like, oh, it's that guy again. Wait, oh yeah, he died. I don't care. So for me, that kind of. And it has to do with the clunkiness of the sitting around the fire scene and talking about how they all came to, you know, and why the reason they all came to protect sort of the Green Destiny and why they're all there.
Because it was all their style, right? Their style was, I know they fought with different weapons. It was iron way, iron.
Yeah. It just
something.
None of that like landed for me. Maybe it was a language thing. Maybe it was a performance thing. It just didn't work. And I wasn't.
And you're absolutely right. Like, there's no question. You have to. A lot of times in this movie, you have to make your own fun.
Yeah.
and since you hate fun, Shahir,
I mean, there's
that'd
no
be a
way
very difficult task.
It's incredibly difficult for someone like myself.
Now, do you think? Let me ask you this, and this might be sort of transition into the third question you asked Aaron. Do you think that this sort of crafting of character was lost due to sort of the Hollywood-esque directing, like here, as opposed to what we might see in other films of this genre?
That's a difficult question, and yes, I did ask Aaron that question, and we'll get to his response in a second, specifically about, you know, the distinction, you know, what Ang Lee brought to the table. But it's odd to call Yi Wu-ping a Hollywood director because, you know, he doesn't work in Hollywood.
Touché. Yeah.
Well,
but this movie kind of reeks of Hollywood.
It does entirely, and I think what you're referring to there is it's not necessarily a Hollywood approach to the film, but it might be more of a like, well, that's who we're trying to target this film towards. So we need to make it more palatable for them.
Yeah.
And that's where the English language thing comes in. And so it's weird because although Crouching Tiger, the original, was directed by Ang Lee, it didn't feel like that was necessarily a film for Hollywood.
So do you think it was then the writing here by James
Fusco?
No,
James Schumer, who wrote the original.
Oh, sorry. So the lack of it then.
Yeah, well, James Schamus is a terrific writer. He's, you know, one of the great screenwriters of Hollywood. Plus, he's an amazing producer as well. He started the company Good Machine. So he doesn't have sole writing credit on that film either. He wrote it with another writer.
Gotcha.
Hugh Lang Wang, but I think the writing is missing. Definitely the emotional content of the writing. But why don't we hear what Aaron had to say about it?
Alrighty.
There is always resistance whenever someone from Hollywood attempts to enter into a Asian film genre. However, for the case of Ang Lee, some of the resistance was mitigated by the fact that he was personally immersed in the wuxia lore throughout his life, and he brought together a dream team of cinematic talent to create a mesmerizing film. In fact, I would call Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon a genre-defining film. Ang Lee's cinematic success prior to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon focused on gay and heterosexual romances. So when you watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you see an insertion of romantic melodrama that is usually lacking in previous wuxia films.
I think that's exactly sort of what we were talking about, how this movie, I mean, Ang Lee put a ton of sort of romantic emotion in the original. And this one, that's lacking. And it's funny because there's more action in this one. There's definitely more fighting. And the fighting looks sometimes, I mean, it looks good all the time, but like dope as fuck. Like there's a scene where Silent Wolf fights the young kid
Yifang, or I think his name is,
and then his master on a frozen lake.
Yeah, and that's a cool in principle, I think.
That just the whole thing. I mean, you could tell it was shot on green screen, but it was so cool looking, you didn't give a shit. Like, it was just so nice, and to see them, like, I love the wushu sort of wuxia, I always pronounce it wrong. Style is see them, floating through the air and be weightless and be sort of control over one's gravity and all that stuff. But this was like them sliding farther on ice and like snow. I don't know. The whole fucking thing looked great. But again, where the Netflix film Sung it definitely lost a lot of any emotional gravitas based on, I mean, the characters we mentioned we didn't care about, and the romances I didn't give a shit about here either.
Yeah, and you know, like there are two major set pieces in this film that are both kind of CG heavy set pieces. They are the ice fight that you just mentioned, and then the fight on top of the tower at the end.
Which was neat looking.
Well, look, the ice fight I think is a less CG, like has less factors involved, and it looks cooler than the tower fight, which is like almost like is like all CG. But none of them are as interesting as the bamboo fight in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for example.
100%.
None of them have that kind of weight to it, and it goes to show that the emotional side of the fight is more important, I think, than the actual technicalities of the fight. While there needs to be a technical proficiency, it's not as important. And it's just missing that factor so much. There's also, like, I found, and this is just because I have an editing background as well, the editing to me was really clunky in this movie. Like, to the point where I felt like...
The general editing or the fight editing?
The fight editing wasn't terrible, although I wish there were there was more chance to see great fighting, just doing its thing. But there was unusual editing in this film. Like, for example, there's a scene where Snowvase, the young girl, releases Taifang right before that ice fight that you mentioned.
Yep.
And she's kind of like, she's unsure about doing it, and it's a big decision, and then she does it. And then the next scene we see is her sleeping right after doing it, and then Weifang comes back to steal the sword. And it's like so it's kind of like the way it's edited is kind of like she was really upset about this thing, then she went back to sleep, and then he came back and still, and the thing that she was worried about, he did anyway. But it all happens within like 30 seconds of each other, and I was like, why? What's going on here? And then
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and when Weifang takes the Green Destiny to Hades Dai, the master. It's sort of cut in a way that like Hades Fire is standing right in front of him, but then when they do a pullback, you realize Hades Fire Dai is like way up on top of the tower, but the cutting kind of like muddles all that spatial orientation for me, and I was like, oh wait, he's actually here. Oh no, he's there. I found the whole thing kind of clunky.
Yeah, I totally get that. And even from a story perspective, too, I feel like the story editing itself kind of fell apart a couple times. Like, the whole thing is because this sword, the Green Destiny, like, no one's ever lost while holding it. Yeah. And in this movie, like, 2 or 3 people lose while holding it. Yeah, and you're like, okay. And then, like, it's not that important, I guess. It's like the sword, it doesn't... what was the line? It's like you don't hold the sword holds you.
Holds us. Yeah, oh boy. That was like the King Kong final line.
Right, so I guess,
it was
like...
beauty who killed the beast.
The sword was in us, and all of us, or whatever the fuck. So that, like, kind of... It just... That, like, you undercut... Doing something like that, you undercut any emotional weight you've built to the entire story. Like, everyone wants the sword, then all of a sudden it doesn't matter who has the sword. So, like, I don't know. Maybe I read that wrong, but it made me not care even more.
One thing that actually landed for me, I was kind of surprised by how well this worked, is that, again, like Crouching Tiger, there are 2 simultaneous romances, a kind of unrequited love between I'm going to say her name wrong again, but Yushu Lin, Michelle Yeoh's character, and another Grandmaster. In the first film was Li Mu Bai by Chow Yun-fat, and this one it's Silent Wolf played by Donnie Yen. So that's this unrequited love that goes on, that's mentioned there. And then there's like a new love that happens underneath
But then in Michelle Yeoh's love, though, hold on, then she says she loves him.
Yeah, she actually in this film she actually kind of like makes the decision to be with him, which didn't happen in
also just felt completely out of fucking left field to me. It was like, oh well, this should happen because we're here.
And it's possibly like a Hollywood version of what happened in the original, because in the original film, both love stories end up ending unhappily. Yeah. Like in a kind of poetically beautiful way.
Yeah.
But in this film, there was...
You liked the young one.
Yeah, in this film, well, it's not a young love story, but it's a story of two young people who find out that they have interconnected pasts, like where you find out
That
they
was
were
interesting, yes.
Yeah, they were raised by the same woman and one of them was stolen away, and the other woman spent her life trying to find him, and they've ended up fighting against each other now. And these are played by two new actors, and you can see the young woman is played by Natasha Leo Borzizo, who's an Australian actor, and then she plays Snowface, and Yi Feng is played by Harry Shum Jr., who's a Hong Kong actor who's appeared in Glee, I think, and a couple of other American films. That story actually kind of worked for me. I was surprised by how well that story worked, and I felt like that was kind of possibly from the original novel, or
that.
But
that
I
felt
kind of
more,
that I kind of felt like I wish that was more of the film was more about that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that story about how some woman stole the boy because the boy having a male child is more important than having a female child back in the day.
Yeah.
And so then I don't know. I liked that a lot, and I liked their sort of interconnectedness through that. And that had a little more gravitas than anything else really in the film.
It's surprising how well that works given the rest of the film doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
And it could be because, and I know we're sort of talking about characters and stuff. Everyone in this movie, I mean, this movie kind of lives and dies on its character charisma in a weird way.
Yeah.
And it's not all over the top drunken fighter characters, but Michelle Yeoh, even Snow Vaz, and all that shit. I don't know, you like them all for different reasons.
Yeah.
But the thing is, here's the twist. You like them, you don't care. They're tertiary to me. They don't I don't really care about the thing, and especially the only thing if I'm supposed to care about is this fucking sword. If it gets in the hands of the main bad guy, then the martial world will go into disarray and he'll take over the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, I was kind of
when he already
curious.
had a badass sword.
He did, and he was like a master swordsman, and it kind of felt a little bit like Hamlet, the sort of evil witch that was telling him to
Oh, and don't get me started on fucking Nightcrawler Light, that fucking witch contact lady.
Why did she want revenge on Yu Lin, on Michelle Yeoh's character? They never say, right?
The second that they fucking did the whole disappearing bullshit, I was like, this isn't supposed to.
This shouldn't be in this movie.
Yeah, that CG was wrong. I will say the tower CG, some of it looked a little schlocky, but I'm always impressed with ragdoll body physics and modeling. They fall through levels of the tower at one point.
Yeah.
And that looked great to me. That one shot, there was a long shot of them crashing through roofs. I was like, oh wow. I know in my brain it's CG, but the way the bodies moved, I felt like the motion capture or whatever they did, the animation felt very real.
I don't. To me, it kind of felt like live action Looney Tunes.
Sure. By that point, 100%.
Yeah.
But we've been ranting and raving for near an hour now, Shahir.
What is Aaron? Should we ask Aaron what he thought about the film?
Yeah, let's ask him what he thought of the movie, and then we'll do our final thoughts. And all right, Aaron, what do you think?
At present, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny represents the best amalgam of the cinematic traditions from Hong Kong, China, and Hollywood. It does so by successfully blending together authentic martial arts skills, fabulous action choreography, inventive wire fu, a limited dependence on digital special effects, Hollywood big-budget production values, and respectful producers such as Bey Logan, who have the expertise and commitment to create cinematic magic. As an academic, I can see some limitations in this film. It's been accused of being too Chinese and too Western. Here I would agree. It is too Chinese because we can call this an example of wuxia with Chinese characteristics, since there were certain changes that had to be made in order for the film to pass mainland Chinese censorship and thereby be welcomed for general film distribution within the Chinese theatrical circuit. We can also call it too Western, since it comes across as a wuxia romance, since at the very end we have a Hollywood happy ending with Shu Lian reunited with her man and the two junior semi-siblings all riding horses and walking off into the sunset. This is the classical happy ending of a Hollywood Western.
Plot twist. Aaron liked the film. I think Aaron liked the film more than we did.
Well, see, I think he liked it clinically more than I did. I do have to say I liked it, but again, I have to give it that caveat of perfect film, perfect time for me.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm glad he liked it. And actually, Shahir, you're making true on what you said about our man Aaron here. He seems like he knows how to have fun. How did a man who knows how to have and appreciate fun
end up teaching me how to
stomach your fun hating?
I am the fallen student that has taken his teachings the wrong way and used them for evil rather than good. No, I do. Look, if there are. It's that kind of thing, which is that the genre is so much about spectacle that if you derive pleasure purely from the spectacle, then I can't fault that. It's kind of the way, we come back to everything. We should rename this podcast to be the Marvel Universe Podcast. But in the way that,
No, you kill yourself.
But in the way that if you enjoy a Marvel film and it gives you pleasure, then there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. There's no reason to fault that.
Since when?
I think it's wrong, but I can't. If you simply want to me, if you simply want to see cool waifu scenes, done on a grand scale, then this is the film for you. I personally think that there is a much better film in the original, and I think that this film, in a way, degrades what was great about the original by
that's the problem.
By cashing in on it. If it was an entirely different film that didn't have Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in the title, and they weren't fighting trying to fight over the Green Destiny from the first film, and it wasn't Michelle Yeoh reprising her character, then I might have been like, you know what, yeah, it's fine. But because it's all of those things, it can't help but be seen in the shadow of its predecessor, which is a far superior film.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, and I mean, I wish more sort of filmmakers would kind of realize that. Like, again, like the fact that, for instance, like Terminator 3 or any of the Terminators really, after Terminator 2, keep trying to over-trump the greatness of T2 and failing. Like, you failed 3 times now. Like,
but even that's a great series of films to point to where the sequel outdoes the predecessor. Like T2 is much better than
T2 is way better. So yes, it's both examples of how it can work. But then the sequels to T2. What I'm saying is this: if you're not sure, filmmakers out there in the universe, that your movie is going to be better than the original, don't do it. Like, I like that this film exists. Don't get me wrong, but if this was just called something else, the same exact movie, renamed the sword. And rename the movie, I feel like you could acclaim it more. You could give it more people could give it more passes. Like,
absolutely,
it's basically what you just said.
And here's the thing as well, is that this is, even of the films like this that I love, for example, Shaolin Soccer, Kung Fu Hustle, which are, kind of more comedies, Young Detective D, the new Choi Hak film. Those films aren't great movies either. They're kind of fun and enjoyable, and the pleasure is the waifu, the waifu in it, but not necessarily the film itself. Crouching Tiger is an anomaly in many respects. I think, a film like Hero and House of Flying Daggers tries to replicate, or, is aiming for the same thing as Crouching Tiger, but it doesn't, for me, it doesn't quite hit. But that's a different kind of film to what Sword of Destiny is trying to do. There's another film that came out this year that won major prizes at Cannes that I haven't seen yet, but I really would like to see. Hao Xian-shu's film Assassin. Now, Hao Xian-shu is a Taiwanese filmmaker who's kind of like Ang Lee, which is that he's not really known for doing wuxia films. So I'm really curious and the films that he makes are very intimate, personal explorations of love, like a film like Millennium Mambo that he made. So I'm really curious to see what he does. But I'm not.
It's always fun to see people step out of their wheelhouse and take an established sort of thing and be like, I'm going to try this now.
Or, like Ang Lee doing the Hulk.
Well, it's sometimes fun to see people step out of their wheelhouse.
Sometimes fun,
So, Shahir, with all that said and done, would you recommend people watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny?
Look, because it's on Netflix, because, most of us have easy access to Netflix, although, not always the case, it's worth a watch, but I don't, I find it very hard to give this a recommendation. It's only worth a watch if you have time. You know what I mean?
You don't make time, but
don't
if you
make
have
time for this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think one thing it did for me, again, I got to say, right film, right time. I really enjoyed it, but I also agree with easily 97% of what Shahir said here, which is something that rarely happens.
Yeah.
But I will say something it really did, and obviously the barrier to entry, great. There's no excuse if you like these kind of movies to watch it and at least get your own opinion yourself. And you can write us in at where, Shahir?
onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at onlymoviepod.
Tell us what you thought of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. But also, write us in and let us know. I actually just took a minute after finishing this film and went through the foreign section of Netflix. Just scrolled. There's some amazing there's a couple wuxia, but also some like just Hong Kong sort of like fight movies from like the 70s and things that are all still sort of in there. And I'm glad I finally I was like, oh yeah, I love this genre. So there's a ton of them that I found that I'm going to go back and watch. And if you guys find any, please send them my way or our way and what your favorite ones are.
My Netflix queue is filled with their foreign section, which I think is just a gold mine.
It really is. It's one I forget about all the time. But and Shahir, well, first of all, Aaron, who can't hear us right now, but eventually will, thank you so much for coming and lending a ton of your legitimacy to this conversation. It's helped me sort of understand things about this genre that I love and have sort of forgotten about until now. So thank you very much, Shahir, and thank you for finding your old mentor who apparently you've betrayed.
I've betrayed with my lack of fun. I have disappointed Aaron in every way, but I am proud to have been a pupil of his. And as I say, anyone who is a pupil of his now is very, very lucky.
No, I can totally see that. All right. Well, this has been the only podcast about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. You can find me at Emperor MSK on Twitter, Skeletor 4 PREZ on Instagram, and www.matthewkroll.com on the World Wide Webs. And you can find Shahir
at www.shahirdaud.com, SHAHIRDAUD. You can email us at the Only Movie Podcast at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or on our Twitter at onlymoviepod. Please write us in. We enjoy listening, reading your emails and reading them out on air.
Audience, if you liked their pitch to our website for 2 times this time, that's sort of the same equivalent you'll get from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the original, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. So just take that as you will. Shahir, say the most heroic thing you possibly can.
Finish him.
Ooh. All right.
That's the most heroic and evil thing I can say.
Fatality.